Hey everybody, welcome to our Wake Live. Just making sure we are connected, everybody. Hey everybody, all right. We are live. Hey Ryan, hey Jesse. Thanks everybody for joining. So welcome to our live chat with Dr. Ryan Greene. We are going to have a really interesting discussion about mushrooms and fungi and cordyceps and just the world of mushrooms and how they can help us, coming from a doctor's perspective. So we'll just wait for him to join in a few seconds, and I see everybody jumping on. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Really appreciate it. And it should be a really interesting discussion. Dr. Greene is based in Los Angeles, and he has a clinic called the Monarch Clinic, which we'll talk to him more about. It's a really incredible clinic, so we'll let him explain a little more about it. But yeah, thanks for everybody for joining. Hey everyone, this is my personal first live with Wake. I'll introduce myself. I'm Tyler McLeod. I'm a co-founder here at Wake. It's such an honor to be doing this. It's such an exciting thing, I have to say, guys. Like, our whole team is so excited about how this is all coming together. Uh-oh, my mom just joined. Hey mom. It's such an exciting time for our company, for fungi, mushrooms in general. It's really an amazing time. So we really want to just say thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for supporting everything that we've done. It's been a really exciting journey so far, and we are just dipping our toe in the pond, so to speak. So really thrilled to have you guys all a part of the journey with us. And yeah, it's just the beginning. If you haven't had a chance to check out our product, just hit the market, our functional mushroom line. So be sure to check that out. And we're actually going to be giving away a bottle of cordyceps. Nope, there's Dr. Greene. He just joined. But I'll tell you guys about that soon. So make sure you stay with us to win a bottle of cordyceps that we're going to be giving away as well. And let's see if we can get Dr. Greene to join us here. There he is.
How we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain. Busy day. Sorry I'm a little late.
Hey, no worries. Thanks so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So let me just quickly introduce you to everybody. So, and forgive me, guys. I want to read because it's really impressive, and I don't want to miss any of this. So Dr. Greene is an osteopathic physician specializing in human performance, sports medicine, nutrition, and the most cutting-edge recovery methods that are available. He did a postgraduate medical training at Dartmouth and the Mayo Clinic, where he collaborated with a wide array of leading medical experts, including Dr. Wheel for integrative medicine. And he is also, very impressively, an Army Reserve member since 2011. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Greene.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry, I just want to make sure that no one disturbs me during that.
I know. I'm trying to turn everything off too. Turn all the phones on silent. How we can avoid all the noises.
For sure.
So why don't we just? I'd love to ask you first a few questions that have come in. I really want to get into your personal journey as well.
Sure.
For those that don't know, we connected with Dr. Greene through a great friend of ours named Alana, and it's just an incredible thing to not only connect with a medical doctor, but also someone who gets and understands the powerful effects of fungi and mushroom and how it can help us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear your personal journey on that, but let's just dive into a couple of the questions. So you started as a doctor in traditional Western medicine, but what inspired you to have a career in medicine that included healing concepts from other parts of the world?
Yeah, so it's super interesting. In brief, when I was in medical training out at Dartmouth, it's pronounced Dartmouth.
My bad.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Sorry.
It's all good. The way that people were coming in is like we were limited in terms of how we were treating folks based on the tools that we had available, which in the United States, if you have an acute injury, it's one of the best places to be in terms of the technology that we have. But a lot of people, we've kind of developed a negative stigma towards traditional Western medicine because it's associated with pill pushing. So a lot of people would come in, especially out there, who wanted more traditional, Eastern types of medicine. And I didn't really have an answer or response. I did my medical training or med school in Denver, Colorado. So I worked with a lot of people in Boulder, and Boulder is kind of a little bit more Eastern focused, I guess, if you want to call it. So it piqued my interest. And as I was going through training, I was like, man, a lot of people are talking about these other modalities. They're using them with great effect. Why don't I know about them? Why wasn't I taught them? And how could I learn more about them? So once I finished the surgical and sports med training, I thought maybe I'll go into research. That's a different story, but I went into Mayo Clinic and did some sports medicine and research stuff there. And I appreciated at that point, unless something that you produce is patentable, most institutions won't study it because the funding for people that have a vested interest in getting a product on the market will not provide resources to do those studies. For instance, like with mushrooms, you can't patent mushrooms. It's a natural growing substance. So unless someone extracts something and, critiques it a little bit, the funding for utilizing these types of natural healing modalities is not great. I discovered the Integrative Medical Fellowship at Arizona, led by Dr. Weil, who's arguably the founder of kind of nutritional medicine. And he was a huge proponent of using mushrooms as medicine back, in the 60s before they were kind of marginalized for a couple different reasons. But through that fellowship, we were trained in understanding and appreciating the benefits of other, what we call Eastern medicine. I just call it medicine because it just comes from a different part of the world. And so Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, all these different things. And you come to appreciate it's, either these cultures have been fooled for thousands of years or this stuff actually works. It's just something that's been passed along for generations, and there's nothing necessarily that our structure of evidence-based medicine, it doesn't really fit into that mold. Therefore, we cast it aside as something that couldn't be beneficial because we don't have like objective data yet. So at that point, I was like, I should definitely continue to learn more about this stuff and integrate these types of modalities into my practice, because no one would argue the more tools you have in your tool belt, the better the outcome will probably be, because you can attack a problem from numerous different angles, usually starting at the root cause, which is what some of these other fields of medicine tend to focus on, versus treating symptoms, which is oftentimes what we end up doing in the Western side. So I do try to avoid saying Eastern versus Western. I think it's just medicine, but it just varies from what part of the world you're on.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
You created a model for holistic health and wellness called the Monarch Method.
Yes.
And you say that this method is based on principles rather than trends.
Correct.
Can you just speak to that a little bit? Like, what are the principles that Monarch Method follows? Help us understand.
Yeah. So we created a concept. It's a one-stop shop, essentially. And our platform is that we focus on how you move, how you eat, how you take care of yourself. And that includes both with movement, so PT, recovery, those types of body preservation modalities, as well as your internal environment. So what's going on inside of you? Your blood doesn't lie. What's there is there. What's not is not. Most people don't get a blood test every year. Most people don't get a physical every year. Now we're starting to do, 23andMe and Everlywell, and we're looking at all these, food sensitivities and things like that. But how about how's your thyroid? How's your kidneys? How are your liver? So we built a program that includes aspects of movement, nutrition, preventive medicine, as well as recovery. And our foundation, or our method, is essentially saying, hey, these are things that are tried and true. If you move well, eat well, focus on your internal environment, and take care of your body will take care of itself. Like, we do so much to it to cause harm to it. Imagine if you just focused on the basic principles of healthy living, how fantastic your life could be, if that makes sense. So
amazing how simple it
super simple. Like, no one is flabbergasted when they get a good 8 to 10 hours of sleep. They're like, man, I feel a lot better. Like, what if you layered that with drinking enough water, like getting exercise, not eating certain types of foods all the time? So that's where the principles versus trends comes from, because we've almost like neglected everything but movement, because exercise is sexy. There's outfits that you can wear. There's different types of facilities you can go to train. Our approach is like, it's nice to be able to work out in a nice spot, but like, that's a very small piece of a much larger puzzle. So let's provide you the runway and the platform to also have those other areas integrated into your personalized program in a space where your doctor's on site, your PT's on site, your training team's on site, your nutrition team's on site. So you don't have to go anywhere else. And with that, we collect data so that you can be rewarded financially from your insurance provider or company for doing a healthy thing. Because at the end of the day, right now, being healthy is expensive. Like, I won't argue that. And it also takes a lot of time. So we're trying to limit cost as well as limit the time that's required. And that's what we've done. So we launched our first spot in West Hollywood, and we're fortunate because we're considered a medical facility. So through, this pandemic period, we've been able to continue to provide services. And, I would always argue, like, if your doctor prescribes high blood pressure medication, no one's going to argue if you take it. If they provide you or prescribe you exercise, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can't exercise because of coronavirus. But like we are doing everything that we need to do. So it's been an interesting time, but we've been very effective.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's an incredible, can't wait to get there myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you also speak just a little bit to the lack of preventative medicine that's in the current medical structure and why you think we should implement it more?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting paradigm, right? So one, prevention takes time, and a lot of people don't want to invest time, and also to recognize, like, patterns of behavior that led to an unhealthy condition didn't just happen overnight. It was usually months to years. So correcting those things may often take the same amount of time. That's part A. Part B, as I mentioned before, preventive medicine, it's not sexy, and it's not often proprietary. If you understand what I'm saying, like, there's no intellectual property associated with exercise, eating well. So the individuals, the pharmaceutical companies that make money off of people being in a state that's less than optimal health can provide you something they can make money off of to help correct a condition. Yeah. We can't do that in the preventive side because eating a clean diet, getting sleep, and all these things that I mentioned before, like, no one really makes money off of that. The caveat to that is we know how much money we spend as a country. The United States spends $3 trillion a year subsidizing lifestyle associated disease. Like, that's a huge expenditure that we could correct if we just implemented healthy living programs, part A. And part B, companies now have data looking at how much money they lose secondary to employees that are not performing at a high level, missing work often, PTO. So these entities are starting to implement things that basically say, hey, if you do something slightly healthy, we know it's going to save us a lot of money because you're a more efficient employee. So things are starting to shift in that direction. Our hope is with our platform, we can add to the toolkit and say, hey, if you sponsor your employees or health insurance providers, offer this as a benefit, something that they have to pay a little bit, so they put some skin in the game, but ultimately they're happier, they're healthier as an individual. Whoever's providing them benefits from a corporate perspective ends up saving money, and the insurance companies start to develop a cohort of people that are less sick. They're paying out less in claims. So we've kind of identified this like triangle of connection that said, hey, like, we can help everyone in this group, and hopefully we will continue to be successful. So, we're trying to turn the tide on the conversation, which is like, preventive medicine can be profitable for people that invest in it, not because you're spending less. So it's not one of those things where, like, you're going to get rich because you invented something. It's you're spending less on your health, therefore you're saving money. So I think once we change the narrative to that, people will start to pay more attention.
Yeah, it makes sense. Some more questions that are coming in. So do you think that mushrooms play a role in preventative medicine? And if so, what's your personal or professional experience with them?
So a couple things. Personally, I've worked with mushrooms on the medicinal side, as well as dabbled in the like the psilocybin space. But for instance, you were talking about cordyceps earlier. I have a lot of people that, adrenal function is not optimal. They're stressed, they're strained, and things like cordyceps can help support adrenal health, help produce ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. It helps just general energy levels. Some people call it like invigorating. Things like reishi, lion's mane, for those with anxiety, brain fog, things like that, depression, all those things can be super helpful. And alternatives to traditional supplements such as melatonin, where we don't necessarily know the producer. Groups like Wake, we know that the quality of what they're producing, and this is not a pitch, by the way, but like finding supplements that we know are natural, aren't synthetically based, and have a benefit in terms of, all the frequent aspects where people are finding themselves struggling to optimize energy, anxiety, things like that.
Yeah.
I've used them personally and then with patients with great success.
Yeah. Jesse's just asking here, what about libido?
So yeah, it just depends. There's certain mushroom strains that can help libido. Libido is an interesting one because how do I say this? Sometimes it has to do with your partner, and like that's a little bit more of a psychosocial aspect. But yeah, certainly. And we know certain types of mushrooms, including cordyceps, can help produce, increased testosterone levels naturally. So, again, it's one of those things where I encourage people, especially if they're going to use supplements, to try and get something as natural as possible if they're not going to actually eat real food. And, you guys, compared to other brands, which I won't name, the quantity of active ingredient and quality in what you guys produce is significantly higher than anything else available. So, I would strongly recommend, and there's other things you have to consider in terms of like digestion, absorption, anytime you take a supplement, because we can't guarantee what's consumed will be absorbed. But, the best thing you can do is offer your body as, a large a quantity as possible, within reason, and then allow it to do with it what it's going to do. But it won't have that opportunity, one, if you're not providing it.
Yeah, and it's just a couple. Someone else is asking. I can't see their name, but about PTSD, how it can affect or help.
So PTSD specifically, it's very complex. But one of the things we can confirm is mushrooms are higher in what's called beta glucans, and those are things that help gut function, gut health. Mm-hmm. What people don't appreciate is 70 to 90% of your immune system and the neurotransmitters that your brain uses and may be low in terms of quantity secondary to a traumatic event come from your gut. So if you provide something that helps heal the gut in terms of the diversity of the bacteria and the microbiome, you have a higher likelihood that you're going to be producing the neurotransmitters that may be deficient in cases such as PTSD. So, in kind of a roundabout way, it can be beneficial.
Yeah. Okay. Alexander's just asking, how do they increase testosterone?
How do they increase testosterone? So, from a biochemical perspective, there are active ingredients in certain types of mushrooms. Cordyceps is one of them, lion's mane, reishi mushrooms as well, that help stimulate the testes to produce testosterone. So from a biochemical perspective, it gets a little bit nuanced, but there are active ingredients in the mushrooms that help stimulate natural testosterone production in gonads.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Tiffany's just chiming in here saying, do they help heal the gut? Yes, they do. Yeah, we were just chatting about that. So yeah, thanks for asking that, Tiffany. So in one of your videos, you talk about a healthcare model that rewards individuals for doing the right thing in terms of health and wellness. Yeah, that really sparked my interest. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've learned through numerous studies that people in terms of health promoting behavior tend not to change unless there's some sort of reward. most of the data comes from the smoking cessation space. And essentially what they've found is if people don't get money, they're not going to change behavior. I could give you Nicorette gum for the rest of your life, not going to change behavior. But all of a sudden I tell you don't smoke, you get money for it. People will change behavior. So what we wanted to do is provide a platform that allows us to collect the appropriate data so that we can show the individuals who are responsible for, your health and wellness, whether it's insurance or benefits or otherwise, that you are taking your health into your own hands and participating in a program, remaining compliant, all things that we can use tech to do to validate, your health and wellness journey, to show that you're bringing body weight down, reducing markers of inflammation. Mushrooms can help with that. We know that they neutralize free radicals, which are sources of inflammation in the body and can cause, numerous other health maladies. So we have ways to do that, and our program offers interventions at every aspect, whether it's movement, recovery, again, lab work, things like that.
Okay. Thank you. Kyle's just chiming in. He's asking if you've ever heard of SARMs, selective androgen receptor modulators.
Yes. That is a topic for a different day.
We'll cover that next time.
Yeah, Kyle.
Sounds good.
It's a good question, but the whole peptide space is it's nuanced. I mean, I think it's wildly beneficial, but and the government's figured that out, and so they've made it more difficult. But that's a topic for a different day.
For another discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, on a personal level, you shared a little bit when we first spoke on the phone. I'm just like, is there anything that you want to share? I mean, I think the elite for people to get from, where they've experienced mushrooms socially to get into a ceremonial environment where you have a shift, you have that wow moment where you realize, wow, these are really making me feel better. Like they're helping me. Do you want to share anything about your experience? Kind of what got you to believe that this is really a big factor for us?
Yeah. So, stepping away from, mushrooms as supplements that can be purchased commercially is one thing. Like, the whole supplement space is a wild, wild west. Like theoretically, there's a ton of theories on many different supplements, which is why GNCs are packed, vitamin shops are packed. But ultimately, the oversight and regulation is poor, to say the least. So you get a lot of poor quality supplements out there. Using stuff like you guys produce, we know is super high quality. You all know where it's grown, completely organic, and it has the highest standards available in terms of what you guys produce. That's why I would utilize it. I personally use it and give it to patients. From the medicinal side, with PTSD, anxiety, like what people call magic mushrooms, the psilocybin aspect, it's remarkable to see where medicine's going in the sense that we're looking at ketamine now for depression, and we're FDA approving ketamine. But we have much data from the 50s and 60s on the benefits of psilocybin and other natural plant-based healing medications that we ultimately criminalized, and now are kind of clawing our way back. I saw a comment on marijuana, and what we're learning about cannabis and THC is phenomenal, and it's, in my opinion, took way too long to get to that point. And I think psilocybin's the next great frontier. And so for personally, I was introduced to it through a shaman who leads ceremonies that utilize psilocybin, and I've appreciated, if you've read the book by Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind. He kind of chronicles. Yeah, it's a great book. How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. He hits the nail on the head. He goes, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you could absolutely do it recreationally, but the power of the medicine really comes from the fact that ceremonies are curated, set and setting is very important, as well as intention. So you need to be working with someone that you trust, but also being in a space that you feel safe, because part of how this psilocybin works is it requires you to essentially release control and appreciate that something is happening in you that is beyond your control, and you have a little bit of ability to kind of shape your experience. But most people find most benefit when they just allow the natural medication to do what it's supposed to do. And we've seen with you guys and with numerous other groups, the benefit that can have on healing, cognitive damage introduced by anxiety, PTSD, trauma, things like that, is profound. The mechanism isn't well elucidated yet, which is, what people are trying to do to try and define like exactly how this works so we can provide it for other people. But I think, at least for me, the power in what I've experienced from it comes from the fact that I'm working with people that know appropriate dosing, know how to set up a space that you can feel safe, and also allow you to, basically utilize your own intention, whatever that may be. And, I'll be honest, I've probably participated in those ceremonies more than a dozen times over the last couple years, and it's been wildly life-changing. And if I went to my medical colleagues and I was like, the first question is, how does this work? Like, we don't really know, you know what I'm saying? Like we're learning, but I have numerous patients that have participated in these ceremonies, not with me, but, at other locations. And I can only say that I personally, and then these entities have experienced incredible results.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's
yeah.
I've had a similar experience, and it's just I think the most important thing, like you said, is setting and dosage. It's a completely different experience doing it socially versus doing it in a ceremonial setting, a controlled setting, and controlling all the things that you hear, that you smell, that all the senses are controlled. That's when the effect can be really incredible.
Certainly.
So we've got a couple questions coming, and I just want to remind everybody where we are. We are going to be giving away a bottle of cordyceps this week. We're talking about cordyceps, and we're going to dive into that a little bit too with Dr. Greene next. But after we post this on our Instagram TV, you can just post a comment, and that'll get you in the raffle to win a bottle. Kyle mentioned a little bit about microdosing psilocybin, how it's increased his memory and his mental sharpness, but he's not sure how to actually measure that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
It's a good question. So, it's something that how to measure, I don't know exactly what, in terms of how to measure like memory improvement or just like the microdosing protocols.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, Kyle. If you're not, I'm not sure whether he meant on the dosage or measuring how much it can improve him. But let's just say the dosage. I guess it's just
Yeah. So, with individuals that I have, as a licensed medical practitioner, I have to be careful. So I have individuals that operate in this space. And we have some guidelines in terms of what may be effective in terms of minimal dosing. Delivery mechanism also is important. Honestly, it varies. Like that's the best answer. I don't have a better answer than that. I think people have to try it and figure out what dose allows them to be functional, not inhibited in any way, and that's different for everybody.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, I agree. Everyone's different. I think it's just better to start baby steps, start small, work your way up. And Kyle's just asking also, any other good reads that you could recommend on this topic or on the space? Any other good books? We have one other favorite.
So there's a really good book called The Angel and the Assassin. That recently came out by Donna Nokazawa. And essentially it is the recent science behind the importance of microglia, which is essentially like the white blood cell of the brain, and how we've woefully unappreciated the fact that inflammation in the body that could come from many different lifestyle behaviors, diet, substance use, does affect the brain. When previously in science for hundreds of years, we thought the brain was this immune privileged space that like what happens in the body doesn't get up here, that there's a barrier called the blood-brain barrier. There's recent science over the last 10 years that's essentially like busted that belief wide open. And now we're understanding that things that affect the body absolutely affect the brain. And so for individuals with ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, like a lot of it's associated with what's going on in their periphery. And then again, which increases the importance of like doing baseline day-to-day functional things correctly, which is, part of our foundation. And, there's absolutely an avenue for mushrooms in there as well, because, whether it's increasing energy and producing ATP to help deal with free radicals, like all stuff we'll talk about with cordyceps, like all those things help reduce inflammation, help the body be more efficient at a mitochondrial, like a cellular level, which we now know affects things in the brain. So like, I think we've always believed that everything is connected, but like didn't quite understand it until now we have some, solid science behind the fact that like, hey, what you take in, what you do to your body absolutely affects your brain and mind, and vice versa. So that's a really good book called The Angel and the Assassin.
Great.
Because it can be helpful and hurt.
Yeah. So there's a lot of other great questions, guys. Thank you so much for diving in with all the questions. If I don't know that we're going to be able to get to all of them tonight, so we keep sending them in. You can DM us with more questions. We'll make sure we get all the answers to you. But let's switch over to cordyceps. We're focusing on cordyceps this week at weight, and we just wanted to dive into that a little bit. So can you just tell us a little bit about what the benefits of cordyceps are?
Yeah. So, I principally work with people and recommend cordyceps that, this concept of adrenal fatigue. So there's a lot of various different components that surround this. It's kind of like it's kind of like a gray area in terms of medicine. Like, can your adrenals burn out? Like typically it's either they have Addison's disease, which JFK had, or you have functioning adrenals, and we're finding that there's a little bit of gray area in there. So for cordyceps, like people that come in low energy, we mentioned low libido. I get a lot of athletes that are looking for ways to increase athletic performance, help their recovery time, deal with inflammation. Both of those things are connected. We know that cordyceps helps produce ATP, helps support your adrenal gland function, and then allows the body to produce the necessary energy it needs, build up those ATP and energy stores that may be depleted secondary to what you're doing on a day-to-day, what your lifestyle looks like, and also help deal with natural inflammation that we introduce into our own system. ATP is the energy unit of the cell. We can run out of it. You don't run out completely, but we can definitely run on low levels, and this helps naturally restore those energy producing substrates, which allows the body from a cellular to a macro level do what it needs to do. So that's kind of like the overarching aspect. Like if you want to figure out what mushroom supplement should I use, if it's like energy, invigorating, things like that, cordyceps tends to be the way to go for that.
Okay. And just had a question from Jesse. What is an adrenal?
Your adrenal glands they sit atop your kidneys, and they essentially produce numerous different hormones, cortisol, which is your fight or flight mechanism. So part of people that are super stressed out tend to believe that they wear out their adrenal glands. And, there's many other vitamins that help the adrenals, but one of the things we know is, the strain of mushroom called cordyceps. So, so the adrenal glands are kind of your hormone producing unit of the body.
Okay. How do you think workouts would compare with cordyceps versus without cordyceps? Would there be a difference?
I think for people that are looking, so folks that work out regularly or even not regularly, one thing that I hear a lot is like, I'm too tired. I'm too tired. And I think most of like the pre-workout supplements that are available, they basically just slam as much caffeine as you can possibly get in a solution. And it'll give you energy, but ultimately, caffeine is addictive. There's numerous other things associated with it. So if you were able to use a natural energy producing supplement, such as a cordyceps compound, you're taking something that's natural, and it's very difficult to overdose on cordyceps, and it's definitely not addicting, and you're providing yourself like a healthy natural energy versus kind of a more of an artificial approach. Because
Okay.
caffeine is natural. Like you get caffeine from nature, but like we consume significantly more than is necessary, and it also affects other aspects of our daily life. And cordyceps is very rarely what I don't think I've ever heard of anyone that's overdosed on mushrooms like cordyceps. Psilocybin based is totally different, but
Yeah.
um, yeah. So for people that are looking to optimize their energy when they work out, 30 to 60 minutes before exercising, using a cordyceps supplement or a tincture or something like that is certainly reasonable.
Okay. Um, Gail's written in here, how should depression at a clinical level be addressed? Yeah,
Uh,
big
in
one.
brief, it's multifactorial.
Hmm.
I think you have to look at not only physical factors, what you eat, what you do on a daily basis, how much sleep you're getting, but mental and emotional factors as well. What does your support system look like? Do you have people around you that are contributing to significant stressors in your life, which will then ultimately affect your desire to go out and do the things that are health promoting, like if you're not feeling well. So it's a multifactorial approach. I would encourage people to, depending on, the severity, and again, I'm not working with you, so I can't state specifically,
Yeah.
but typically depression, if you focus on, what we know helps improve mood, which is getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, exercising regularly. The endorphins associated with exercise are 100 times more powerful than any opiate analog that we've produced. Um, and getting in those regular patterns, many people with mood disorders, they tend to self-regulate. So um, I would encourage folks to take a look at their baseline day-to-day functionality to try to identify areas that they may not be, or they may be deficient or not as optimal. And then if those things are corrected and you're still struggling, yeah, then absolutely look to see if it's a neurochemical issue. Um, but an interesting anecdote is since the advent of antidepressants, we've actually seen a 3,000% increase in cases of depression over the last 30 to 40 years. So theoretically, the thing that was meant to cure depression, we've now seen you know a significant increase in cases. So my point is like treating with chemicals is not always necessarily the way to go.
Yeah, it
So
seems
that's
not.
that's kind of off topic, but
Yeah. I just had another question here on cordyceps. Do you think cordyceps could interfere at all with any antidepressants, or would they work okay?
I think natural products typically are synergistic with
Mhm.
um, most medications. What I can say is based on um, the mechanism by which medications are filtered from your system physiologically, certain supplements may increase or decrease enzymes that are needed to allow the medication to work effectively. So you should absolutely research, does this supplement interact negatively with this medication? Because
Yeah.
if it does, you may experience um, an excessive amount of whatever, impact of your medication or a depressed amount. And ultimately, if you're going to take a medication, you want to make sure that you give yourself every opportunity to allow it to work optimally.
Yeah.
So, typically they tend not to interact significantly, but I would certainly look to see like what you're taking and if there's a known interaction with a nutritional supplement.
Okay. Okay. Um, so energy, like, what does energy from cordyceps feel like when you compare it to energy from like a stimulant like coffee? Is there a difference?
I think, I mean, again, that's subjective from
Yeah.
personal experience. Um, Jittery is, I guess, the best word that most patients report is like they don't feel that sense of jitter. They don't have that anxiety. Like sometimes people notice palpitations or increased heartbeat
From
um,
coffee?
from coffee, like anything
Yeah.
that has a ton of caffeine.
Yeah.
Cordyceps
That's the,
based or those types of beetroot is known
yeah.
for energy as well. But those things tend to be just a natural energy supporter without the negative manifestations of like that hyper vigilant, like holy cow, my eyes are bugging out, like
Yeah.
my mind's going 1,000 miles an hour, like my heart's racing. That tends not to occur. Um, some people associate energy with that state, which is just inaccurate. I think most people, if you do a sustained, cordyceps regimen, you'll just notice your frequency of exhaustion decreases. But again, that requires you to like check in with yourself and be like, yeah, normally like when I worked out, I would bonk at this point, but now I'm making it through my workouts. Or if I did a cordyceps supplement in the morning around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, I'd usually want to take a nap. Now I'm kind of like powering through without that exhaustive wave coming in. So those, it's not, I drank a Jolt Cola and like, I feel like I could run 1,000 miles. It's, it's a little bit just more of like a subtle increase in energy level.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. There's more questions
Sure.
that have been coming in, but everybody, if we didn't get to your question, we will definitely get to it. We will get you the answers. And, there's one more thing that we do want to ask you though, Dr. Greene, is if there was just one thing that you could teach the entire world about health, what would it be?
Oh man.
I know it's a big one. We end with a big one.
Yeah. Common things are common. Common things are common. So just, what I talk with patients about and what we talk with patients and members here at Monarch is you have to crawl before you walk. And especially with health, I think we've created so many different streams of information and modalities that are like, this is the way you get to this and this is the way you get to that, when in actuality, again, common things are common. So just if you focus on the basic tenets of health, movement, what you put in your body, what's going on inside, and how you allow yourself to recover, I promise you many of the things that bother you will slowly disappear. And I then challenge people to say like, hey, you think you're living well right now just because you're not in a hospital or you're not, chronically taking medicine. But I would challenge you to do these basic common things. Have a daily routine in terms of when you go to bed, when you wake up, like all those things. And I suspect when you look back a couple months down the road, you will say like, wow, I've really never felt better than I ever could have imagined. And, it all came from simple lifestyle tweaks that anyone can do. It doesn't cost a ton of money. So common things are common.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that. Well, I mean, I think we can sign off with that. And we've got a couple of people ask if we can sort of reintroduce ourselves. So on behalf of myself, I'm co-founder here at Wake. My name is Tyler McLeod, and we've been speaking with Dr. Ryan Greene, an osteopathic physician that specializes in human performance, sports medicine, nutrition, and the most cutting-edge recovery methods available. He's also an Army Reserve member since 2011. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Greene. We really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And, if anyone has questions, you shared my Instagram handle, feel free to reach out. I try to be as responsive as possible, and hopefully we can do this again.
Absolutely. We'll definitely look forward to doing it again. And please, everybody, we are going to give away that bottle of cordyceps. So we're going to repost this interview on our Instagram Live TV. All you have to do is just make a comment on that, and we'll be sure to enter you in the draw. So thanks again for joining us, Dr. Greene, and we'll look forward to next time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. Take care.
See ya. Have a good one.